What's going on, guys? So I recently had a question from a viewer regarding an upgrade I did to this trailer. So this is my 7 by 10 foot Texas Pride micro dump trailer. This thing is super cool, has a front telescopic end dump on it. This is just absolutely one of my favorite trailers because of how easy it is to get into. But an upgrade that I recently did, and this is traditionally one somebody might do on like a cargo trailer or a small RV or a utility trailer, but not necessarily on a dump trailer, was to upgrade to this really cool Dexter Easy Flex suspension system. Now, I kept the same shackle straps and bolts except for the center one there. Now is a wet bolt, but I did that because I needed the longer shackle straps. The heavy duty shackle straps that I had would not fit, so I needed to go with these. That said, there were some folks who said when they looked at the specs on this thing, it's only rated to 6,000 pounds, and this trailer is rated to 10,000 pounds, and the trailer weighs 3,000 pounds by itself. So does that mean this can only support an additional 3,000 pounds worth of cargo capacity, or whatever I put in the back of this dump trailer, thus possibly overloading this if I go to the capacity of the trailer itself? And that's a really good question. I'm going to try to answer that. Hang tight, I'll be right back. And the answer to that question is, whenever you see a rating like this, on the box it says 6,000 pound axle capacity. That actually means that each axle can have up to a 6,000 pound rating, giving this total capacity of 12,000 pounds, which means that even after the 3,000 pounds of the trailer itself are deducted from the actual suspension component, we still have 10,000 pounds worth of capacity left on this Dexter Easy Flex. So let's go to the box so I can show you, because it can be confusing. So on the Dexter box, you can see this is the K71-652-06 Easy Flex suspension kit. It's a complete kit for axles up to 6,000 pounds maximum capacity. It's a double I-spring system up to 33-inch axle spacing. So again, when a lot of people look at this, they look at this and go, well, are we going to exceed the 6,000 pound maximum capacity of this Dexter Easy Flex system? Because again, the trailer can go up to 10,000 pounds, which means, you know, if they were only rated to support a maximum of 6,000 pounds total, then we would be going over it by 4,000 pounds if we loaded up the trailer to GVWR. But the reality here is that this is per axle. That's why it says for axles up to 6,000 pounds, and they should have put each, because I think that that does add a lot of confusion when you're looking at suspension components. A lot of folks would say, well, I need to get one that says up to 12,000 pounds because that's two 6,000 pound axles, or up to 10,000 pounds because that's two 5,400 pound axles. But no, the way you look at this is per axle. And this is according to the research I've done and when I went out and actually looked for information on this topic. So again, you're looking at a per axle spec. So we have up to 12,000 pounds worth of capacity with the system that we installed on that dump trailer. And what can make things even more confusing is when you look at some of the components that you remove, like this factory non-suspension or non-suspension upgraded equalizer, because there's no weight rating. There's nothing on here specifically to say at what point is this possibly going to fail, or at what point am I going to be over capacity on these things. And that's kind of a shame. I was looking all over the place and you really don't find much information on it other than people trying to address the question themselves, which I think is never a great idea if you don't truly know what the manufacturer has applied from a ratings perspective to individual components. All right, so I want you guys to think about something. If you're planning on buying an RV and your checklist of things that you're looking for do not include enhancements to the suspension, whether or not you plan on adding them right after you buy the RV or the manufacturer has installed them from the factory. Case in point, you look at Flagstaff and Rockwood, torsion suspension. You look at their fifth wheel line, slipper spring suspension, which is more of like an independent style suspension system. You look at Alliance, they have the new touring suspension from CURT, fully independent shock absorption suspension with coil springs. You look at some RVs that have the Moride independent suspension system. You look at some RVs that simply have a better and more enhanced equalizer in the middle, like the Equiflex or the Road Armor or the Moride system. If you're looking at an RV and it does not have these enhancements built into it, if it doesn't already come with them, unless you plan on adding them, you are going to experience an RV that will go through a lot more shock with the main superstructure. You will buy an RV that will probably not last as long on the road, and you're going to have more problems with, whether it's trim falling off, whether it's stuff inside moving around and breaking, whether it's stuff rattling off of your countertops, cabinet doors falling off, TVs breaking, stuff in your refrigerator knocking over, your doors opening up. All of those things can be attributed to the shock, the vibration, and the earthquake-like scenario your RV is going to encounter while you're towing it down the road. If you do not look for suspension enhancements and specific things that are designed to make your RV tow better down the road, smoother, shock-absorbing characteristics that keep the interior and the structure of your RV a little less jostled around, you will likely have problems. Now, here's the thing to think about. If you're not looking at those things, you're probably looking at an RV that doesn't price those specs in because they're trying to keep the price at the lowest possible point to wow you with what's on the inside. Please keep in mind that the focus that you should have, aside from the floor plan, aside from, you know, how much room you have in the toilet, or how much room you have inside of the kitchen, or how big your TV is, or if you have a fireplace, the thing you should really focus on are the things that connect your RV to the ground, because the ground and what it does to your RV is truly going to dictate how well you enjoy your RV and what starts breaking sooner rather than later. So please heed this advice. When you're shopping for an RV, look for an RV that has upgrades to this area. Better tires, better suspension, better characteristics that will allow it to tow and absorb some of the shock more effectively, more efficiently, without transferring it directly into the chassis of your RV. When we first got this Surveyor, it did not have an upgraded suspension. We put the Equiflex on here, which is actually a pretty cool suspension upgrade. Wasn't very expensive if you wanted to add this to your own. eTrailer carries suspension products for just about everybody, and they most likely have some type of an upgrade for your RV. But put that aside. If you can find an RV that you don't have to add it to, if you are perfectly fine paying a little bit more, maybe a different brand that has upgrades there because the manufacturer realizes that those upgrades are going to save them warranty costs, downtime, upset customers, frustrated campers, it's going to definitely help. Now, to what degree, who knows? Depending on how they attach everything in the wall, depending on the fasteners they use, depending on the quality of the installation, the folks working on the assembly line, this might just keep something from breaking as quickly. But think about this. This is what I want you to wrap your mind around. If I have a tack holding a wallboard in place, and that tack is fully seated, it's holding that wallboard in place, but it probably would have held better in place had I used a screw. But let's just say I have a tack. If this thing is shaking like this on the inside as you're pulling it down the road because you don't have anything to help reduce that shaking, do you think that tack is going to pull out quicker or stay in a little longer versus a suspension that is shaking a little less? Let's say 50% less. Let's say 30% less. If I have 30% less shock transferred to the interior of the RV, and I'm controlling that shock and I'm absorbing that shock through the suspension system designed for it, will fasteners, will parts, will components that normally jostle themselves to death last longer, and will my RV have a better overall life expectancy if I can control some of that stuff? That's just what I want you to think about. So when I harp on suspension components, upgrading this stuff, or just getting an RV with this stuff already in place, that's why. If I can reduce the earthquake inside of this thing by 10, 15, 20, 30, 50%, how many fewer problems am I going to have with water leakages at PEX connections? They're using a flexible hose connected to PEX with the wrong type of connector. Okay, but if it's jostling itself to death because I'm not doing anything, or the RV doesn't have any technology to control that, is it going to start leaking sooner or later? That's what you got to think about. So when we talk about suspension upgrades, focus on it, look for RVs with it, and if you see RV manufacturers who build a really fancy RV, but they don't put any type of enhancement in that area to absorb the shock, you might want to move on to the next RV. Anyways, guys, sure hope you enjoyed the video. Take a moment, subscribe to the channel. Check out eTrailer.com if you're looking for suspension enhancements. They carry a ton of them. Anyways, if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to the channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.